I'm a top 2% producer with over 124 million streams, 9 top 50 records, and making 10k plus a month. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact steps that I take if I had to start over so that you can avoid my mistakes and hopefully get there faster. Now, in the beginning, I was stuck, and that was because I had a few problems. So the first problem I had, and these are really problems that all producers face at one point or another. So the first problem I had was that my beats weren't good enough and I had no system to create them consistently. So the first thing is pretty obvious. If your beats aren't that good, you will have a hard time getting them placed. Because even like you might send them out, you might get some responses, or you might post them. But then once you do that, you're not going to get views. You're not going to have people respond to you. They're going to ghost you. They're going to ignore you. And you even might end up burning opportunities and burning bridges because your beats aren't good enough. And that happened to me. So one of the reasons why that was so hard was because I had no system to create them consistently. Because when you're in the beginning, most of the times you're going to be working a 9 to 5. You might be going to school and you have a limited amount of time. Because of that, what ends up happening is like, if you're slow, if you take your time, if you don't really know how to consistently just make really good beats, you have a hard time keeping up and you have a hard time making the amount that's required and the quality that's required. So that was one of the first things. The second thing was that I had no idea of how I would get eyeballs to my beats so that I could make money. And for me, it was just like it was a jungle, because it's like everybody says different things. So one guy will say, oh, you need to create content. No. Another guy will say, no, you need to do high ticket beat sales. That's the only way. Then some other person will say, oh, no, that's all wrong. You need to focus on networking. And it just gets so confusing. And then in my mind, I was like, okay, cool. If all of them say these different things, let me just do all of them. And one of them will work. False. None of them will work because I got spread so thin between that, work, school, that I basically got no results. Then lastly, I had no idea of how to actually monetize and charge for my beats. That's another thing. Even if I did get to the point where I had really good beats, I had the eyeballs, so people wanted to use them, then I had no idea how I would actually monetize it and make money with it. Now, before we get into how I fix these things, if you want a copy of this Google Doc and to learn more about growing your production career, I'm sharing this for free inside of my free community. So I'm just showing the community right here. We're doing one feedback call every week. We're all in here having a good time. People are getting wins, learning. And if you want to join in on that, click the link in the description. Now, let's get into the steps taken and how I fix these things. So the first and the obvious thing that I needed to fix was my beats. And the way that I fixed these was through reps, volume, and referencing songs that were on the charts. So reps, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just need to increase the amount of beats that you're making. If you're 1 year, 2 years, perhaps even 3 years in, depending on your skill level, making more beats will make you automatically better. Because with each beat, you'll learn something. Because you're going to make a beat, you're going to hear if it sounds good or not, maybe tweak it a little bit, maybe change something, and you'll learn something, right? And the more times you go through that feedback cycle, the better, because the more you'll learn. So the more times you spend making beats, the better in the beginning, because you're going to get better at it. What I started doing here was that I started making 5 to 10 beats a day. Now, does that mean that all of those beats were good? No, absolutely not. Most of them were probably trash. But first of all, I got good at making beats, and it helped me develop a system for consistently making them. Second of all, creativity is a game of probability. The more time spent creating, the more things you create, the likelihood that one of them is going to be good is way higher. So that's why this works so well. And they actually did, I don't know if this is just a story or for real, but there's this story about a pottery class where they split up the class into 2 different groups. And group number 1 was supposed to make one pot as good as they possibly could. They were going to spend the entire semester making this one pot and making it perfect. Then the other group, they were just supposed to make as many pots as possible, and then they would see the results by the end of the semester. Now, to little surprise, the people who made the most amount of pots without even worrying too much about it, not only did they make more pots than the perfectionist group, but they actually made better pots than the perfectionist group. Now, with that said, when you do these reps, you want to make sure that you make these reps with good form, because otherwise you might end up hurting yourself. And that's another mistake I made, which was I just mindlessly droned on making beats, but sometimes I was making the same mistakes over and over again without even realizing that I was making them. So the way I fixed that was by referencing songs on the charts. So referencing is super important, and I'm not just talking about downloading a song, put it in your DAW, and then checking the mixing levels. Fine, that's one type of referencing. It can be helpful. But what I'm talking about is figuring out the vibe of a song. So we want to spot patterns of what vibes are working, what sound selection are they using, what drum patterns are they using, how do they make those drum patterns, how do they make their melodies, because that's way more important than your mix. And I feel like when we talk about referencing, we only talk about it as a mixing tool, when in reality it's a tool to learn every single part of producing. Because making good beats and making beats that do perform and that artists do want doesn't have to be super complicated, or it's not super complicated, because really all I have to do is to make a simple melody, probably using one of the most common chord progressions ever, then adding a repetitive lead or something, then picking really good sounds so that everything blends and fits together, give it a nice drum bounce with sounds that fit the melody, and that's basically it. Then you'll also arrange it, you level it, and you're done. So it doesn't have to be that complicated. The complicated part is making these good ideas that actually sound good and that fit together and that somebody can rap on and make a really good song with. Now, does that mean that I always sat down with a particular reference in mind and did something like it? No, not always. One thing that I found helps a lot is practicing active listening. So basically what I do every day, whenever I wasn't making beats, whenever I wasn't at work, then I'd spend my time listening to the top 50 charts. And the reason I was listening to the charts is because that's the highest performing of songs right now. So I'm going to learn from the best of the best right now. And what I do is just spend an hour or two a day, just play through the songs and take mental notes of everything going on in the songs. You can of course also do this with a piece of paper and a pen, but for me I found that was redundant. For me it helped just listening to the songs. And that's what I did. And I spent a lot of time doing that, because then what ends up happening is that you are what you eat, right? So if I just consume music that is performing, that is working all day long, I'm going to start thinking in that way, and I'm going to start incorporating that into my own music. And what I usually took note of was, okay, what chord progressions are they using? What drum patterns are they using? Sound selection, super important. Because if you nail chord progression, sound selection, and drum patterns, then you're pretty much set. Then I would also listen to, of course, the arrangement, how they structured it. Sometimes also use big songs as references. So I pull it up on Spotify, listen to it, make a beat with a similar vibe. And doing that a whole bunch of times over and over again got me pretty good at making beats. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is that I can't just have good beats. I also need to get them heard. And as I mentioned before, there's a million different ways that you can get heard. You can post on YouTube, you can do content, you can do a lot of different things to get heard. It's just a matter of which one you like and which one you can stick with and which one is giving you the best returns. For me, the one thing that gave me the best returns was networking one-on-one with artists. And in the beginning, as I mentioned, I was trying all of these different things and spending a lot of my time doing stuff that weren't really giving me results. So I would spend a lot of time doing a bunch of random content, memes and stuff, and it's like, it did not bring any results and it did not serve me in any type of way. Then I would also upload to YouTube. That did not bring me any results at the time. But the one thing that actually gave me results was when I networked with artists, I got in the studio with them and I made songs. So what I did was that I just looked at every single thing that I was doing and then cut out 90% of the stuff that weren't working. So for example, I saw that networking with artists, making songs, that was working. Making content, uploading to YouTube, doing all of these different things wasn't. So then I removed all of those things and I just focused on one thing, which was networking. And then I took that and I reverse engineered from there. So it's like, okay, I want to network with artists and I want to do that until I can get to the big artists so that I can make money with this. Cool. Now, what do I have to do to make that happen? And what actions do I need to take on a daily basis to keep moving forward and keep making progress? So when I looked at it, it was like, okay, in order for people to even want to network with me, my Instagram needs to look good. So I started by fixing that. And then it's like, okay, that's a one-off thing. I do that. Then I can continuously just upload a few pictures, no advanced content, just a few simple pictures in the studio, whatever, to keep it alive. The other daily action is, of course, that I need to make music. So before I had sessions, I would make beats and then send it out. Then when I had sessions, I would honestly not even make beats. I would just take the session, make the beat in the studio and make a full song because the goal is songs. And those were my daily actions. So that simplified my life a lot because it's just like, because the only two things I had to do was either make beats or reach out to people or reach out to people and get in the studio. That's only 2 things per day that you have to do. And if you only have 2 things to do, you can do them pretty damn well. So yeah, as I mentioned, the first thing I did was build a clean aesthetic Instagram using the 3 Ps. So proof, process, personality. Proof, that is the placements, your beats, that's a form of proof, shows that you're good at what you do. Process, that is studio pictures, filming in the studio, whatever. Personality, that is things outside of music. So you might take some pictures on night out. Like you can do that. It's just a matter of making it look nice, making it look aesthetic and so on. So when I had my profile all set up, I started to reach out strategically. Because at first, I had no thought or strategy behind who I was reaching out to. So I would just reach out to anybody and hope that they would somehow use my beats and somehow like blow up. The problem with that is honestly not going to happen with most artists. If you have a brand new artist, they themselves have a 3 or 4 year journey ahead of them where they're gonna have to figure out their artistry, how to be a good artist, and how they can make songs that people want to listen to and actually make this their career. So I start out with like super new, small artists. And the problem with that is that a lot of them aren't going to be serious. They're not going to take you seriously. They're not even taking themselves seriously. And then you end up staying stuck in this position of you just working around the clock with artists where you're getting absolutely nothing back from it. Now, the strategy here that I discovered that helped me was to work with small artists, sure, but artists who were connected to bigger artists. Because first of all, they're oftentimes going to be more serious because they have a friend who is succeeding and crushing it. Second of all, even if they are super serious and even if they're not on their way to blow up, what's going to happen is that if you work with them, you're getting in the big artist circle. And if you make a great job, the bigger artist is going to take note of that. And they're going to want to work with you sooner or later. And you can also leverage these smaller connections to get new ones. So speaking of leverage, that is the next thing. So once you're reaching out to people, that's when you start leveraging these new connections and these new things that you got going on. So there's a couple different ways that you can use these new connections for leverage. So basically, when you start working with somebody, they're gonna follow you. You're gonna have mutual followers. That is leverage, because then you can reach out to everybody they know. They're gonna see, okay, this guy is followed by this guy. Does that mean that they're automatically, instantly gonna work with you and love you? No, but it's gonna help. It's definitely gonna help. Because it's going to give you some form of social proof, right? The next thing is that once you release songs with a person, you're going to have this release, it's going to come out, people are going to share it, people are going to like it. Then you have a small window of opportunity where you can reach out to the people connected to that person because you just had a release, it's fresh, it's new, people are liking it. They're probably even asking themselves, oh shit, who produced this? Then you reach out to the connections of the artists that you had that release with and you start hitting them up, you start sending them beats. And that's how you can kind of snowball this. So you use the connections that you already have to leverage new ones and get new ones. And I did this myself. And I did this up until the point where I could get the artists who have 500K to 1 million monthly listeners, because that's where I've seen that the money is. Because first of all, they're streaming, so they have money. Second of all, if you do take splits, you'll actually make something from it because, well, they're streaming and you'll always get paid on the back end from the publishing side of things. So that's why those types of artists are so good to work with. And then once I had those artists, here's how I would typically charge for that. So 20 to 30% on the master, depending on what me and the artist agreed on. I know that you might be thinking like, hey, are we supposed to go 50-50? Yes, you can do that, but when you start working with artists who are at least of that caliber that I'm talking about, most people aren't going to agree with that, and I actually agree with them. Because, first of all, yes, you made the beat, you produced a song, but you're not the one that's going to work to push out the record. You're not the one that's going to do the music video, pay for the music video. You're not the one that's going to do all of these different things to promote the record. And if you were involved in the entire process of promoting, making a music video, doing the rollout, then yes, of course, 50-50. But you're actually not. So 20 to 30%, usually what you can get. Then 50-50 on publishing. Because industry standard is that on the publishing side, you split equally between everybody involved in the record. So if it's you, an artist, that's 50-50. If it's you, artist, loopmaker, 33. If it's you, artist, loopmaker, second producer, guy that got coffee, then you split it between all of you equally. Then another thing that I used to do was that I used to not charge per beat, but I would instead charge per song. So when you're just starting out, you can charge like 500 per song. And the reason that's a little bit easier is, first of all, you might have a little bit of jitters around charging people. That's fine. We all have it in the beginning. So what you can do here is that you can do it per song. So that way it's something more valuable. You'll feel better about it. Plus they'll see the value more because it's a song that they want to release. You can start with like 500 per song and then just work up from there. Because as you do this networking and you leverage the connections to get bigger and bigger connections, your brand is going to grow. Because the real brand is the songs that you make. It's not the amount of followers that you have. It's not the amount of, good looking Instagram videos. It's the songs you make and the proof and the status you get from those songs. So the more you have of that, the more you're going to be able to charge. So I started out with 500, ended up on 5K per song. So the outcome of all of this was that I got placements, I got consistent work, and I started making money. Then I started getting collabs with bigger and bigger artists through mutual connections, me reaching out, me getting that social proof, and then leveraging that to get bigger and bigger and bigger artists and make bigger songs. And as I mentioned, I built my brand through relationships, releases, and actual work I did. I'm not saying that's the only way to build your brand, but I've seen that be very effective, especially for people who don't like making content, who don't like being a social media type of guy. You don't have to. You can just do your thing, do it well, and then make sure that you show off the proof, the process, the personality. And you can do that in a very basic way and still make a good living doing this and still make great income. Not just chase a bunch of empty followers that really doesn't do anything for you. And then through this, I learned how to structure fair deals, so splits, PROs, per song, payments, worked well for me. Then I built a consistent income from streams, placements, and production work. The conclusion here is that focus beats everything. Like, pick one lane and get really, really good at it. I went with networking with artists, making songs. That was my lane. It worked incredibly well for me, but it didn't work when I was trying to do that and a million other different things. So pick one lane, stick to it. Then for me, I think of networking as a shortcut because it's very effective because you can get one connection, leverage it to get another one, and so on and so on, and it just snowballs. And that is also the last point that I want to make is to be smart and leverage the connections you have. So you're going to use each win to climb higher and higher and expand your circle and expand your opportunities and expand the work that you do.